A whole page filled with whimsical watercolor autumn doodles? Yes, please. Grab those brushes and let's get painting. Hello, my friends. Welcome. My name is Shayda Campbell, and today we are doing autumn watercolor doodles. I love autumn and I love watercolor. Let's give a supply rundown. 140-pound hot press paper from Arches. Hot pressed has a beautiful smooth texture, which I love, but use any paper that you like for watercolors. A couple round brushes. I'll probably do this mostly with a number 4 and a number 2, maybe a number 6. And then grab those watercolor paints. I'm using my Munoz set. All the supplies are linked in the description, and I have 2 glasses of clean water. I'm not going to get super into the color mixing. This is watercolor doodles. We're keeping everything very whimsical and free, but quickly you can see I've got a lot of raw sienna, some red brown, Van Dyke brown, cadmium red with a violet mixed in, and then some of my favorite greens, deep phthalo and olive brown. Our first autumn doodle today, we're going to warm up with a simple leaf, and it's really just 2 brush strokes. Start small and let that pressure build as you come towards yourself, and you kind of make this little upside down heart-shaped leaf. Leave it alone, put a little stem on it. That's all you need to do for now. Today we're talking layering. We're going to do a lot of wet on dry. So we're going to do the first layer first and paint all these different things. And the second thing I'm painting is a gourd, and I do a very similar brush stroke where I start small at the top and pull that brush down towards me, and I get larger towards the bottom here, and in 4 or 5 brush strokes I build this funny little gourd shape. And then we're just going to leave that alone. We're going to build so much whimsical detail, but we're not going to do that until later when everything has dried. Next, we're drawing a little, or painting a little pine sprig. So I have a lot of that deep phthalo green in my brush, and I want to use the very tip, the fine point of that round brush to make a spray of very thin lines. I tend to make mine a little wider towards the bottom where they all meet, and if everything gets a little messed up and watery at that point, right at the base, that's okay too. That kind of looks nice. We're going for whimsical, we're going for doodles, perfectly imperfect. And you can finish it off with a bit of brown. That's just Van Dyke brown, and I just do a messy stem. Let's paint a maple leaf. I begin with a guide. I do a line with an X, and that shows me where I'm going to place each section of the leaf. And then each section of my maple leaf is just 2 large swipes of that brush. You can refine the little areas slightly if you need to while the paint is still wet, but you get this beautiful loose organic leaf shape by doing it that way. We'll paint some funny little berries kind of in a semicircle. If you get too much paint on there, just use a dry brush to sop up some of that pigment. Then you're going to take a brown, like Van Dyke brown, and just join them all together with some tiny curving lines. And that looks good with red or with violet or brown. I'm also going to paint a mushroom, and I start by using red-brown to simply work out the shape of the mushroom cap. So it kind of looks like a sun hat almost. I actually think this is red-brown mixed with raw sienna. And we could add a little darker brown in there, do a little wet into wet, let the color bleed and blend in that organic way. And then I use a mix of French gray and white, so really light gray, and I kind of just draw in almost this messy little stem underneath, and we'll come back and add lots more detail. So let's leave that to dry for now, and let's paint another leaf together. Grab some raw sienna and 1 or 2 strokes of that brush. Drag the belly of the brush across the page. Just 2 brush strokes makes a very natural looking leaf. Join it together with some stems. I love just painting leaves and berries for autumn and working in this really cozy color palette of raw sienna and yellow and brown and red. Everything's so warm and inviting. Try to focus on your brush strokes and on the process of painting rather than on the subject matter. So look around your neighborhood, get inspired by some of the shapes and colors of fall leaves and dried autumn flowers, and then think about how you can translate those shapes and colors onto the page. So you can follow along with me, sure, but you can also have fun kind of looking and getting inspired from nature and mixing up some of those colors, and then just do those perfectly imperfect, organic, fluid brush strokes, and you will, I promise, come up with some stuff that you are enjoying, that you enjoy, that you like. I did a big sort of light brown swirl for my little snail here. That's his shell. And then we just take that Van Dyke brown and sort of work out the shape of a little worm, a little body underneath. Maybe lighten his tummy simply by using a damp brush to bleed out that brown. Give him his little eyes up top there. He's quite cute, and we could work a little wet into wet by just adding some darker brown to the base of that shell. Now here's another leaf that I like to paint, and again I start with a guide, giving myself a sort of skeleton for the shape of the leaf before using the belly of my brush and dragging those bristles across the page to create these nice larger swaths of color. This is sort of an oak leaf shape, although I don't think oak leaves are typically red, but that's okay, we're just having fun. And we can add darker red into the wet area and let it just blend out so naturally. Finally, I'm going to add a little maple key, and I start with two little round areas of dark green paint. This is my olive green. And then we use a wet brush and kind of grab from those round areas and pull out, creating the shape of the little maple key. If you don't have maple trees where you are, you might be like, what is that supposed to be? But if you do have them, then you've seen this a million times and you know exactly what I'm painting. That took me about 20 minutes to paint all of my autumn little doodles. Now what I want to do is, everything has dried or is almost dry. Now comes the fun. Now we take these rather flat paintings and we really make them pop. And the way that we're going to do that is by using a wet on dry technique. So our first layer of paint has dried. Now we layer more paint on top, and that layering on dry allows us to be really precise, and we can build up like little lines and veins on the leaves. We can add funny little almost doodle lines, like a sketchy line to our gourd, really making it look like a gourd. We can add a little bit of shading here at the base of this tiny gourd or pumpkin, do things like a stem or a leaf. So this is the time when you can add shading, you can add detail, you can just draw an outline if you want, add some texture. Like on my acorn here, I might just add some lines to show the texture of that acorn. I can add some shading. And then on the leaves, I tend to add a lot of like very whimsical little lines, and you know, I just kind of make it up as I go along. So this is when you want to maybe grab that smaller paintbrush. It will allow you to be incredibly precise, and we can just, you know, think of it as doodling, except instead of using a pen, you're using that tiny paintbrush, and we're going to add, you know, dots on the mushroom and stripes on the acorns and veining on the leaves and maybe outline our pumpkin. So we're getting very, very whimsical here and still maintaining that perfectly imperfect look. If you love painting leaves like I do, but you still have questions or concerns, even though I have so many leaf painting watercolor videos, I still get a lot of questions on the subject. And so recently, just last Friday, I released a really concise video about how to improve your leaves. It shows you what not to do as well as what you should do, and I'm really proud of this video. I think you'll find it very helpful. So check that out. It is linked in the video description. It is available for you to watch right now. What am I doing here with my little snail? I'm doing an outline on the shell. I'm adding some shading on her body, and then I'm also going to put some little lines on her shell because that just looks cute and whimsical. I'm going to finish up this wet on dry section of this painting by adding some outline to my oak leaf, a little bit of veining on there, and then finally I want to add some veining lines on the maple leaf. And this maple leaf actually is one of the examples that I used in the Better Leaves video. So if you want to see this a little slower and really, get to know every step, definitely check that video out. But there she is. She looks so cute. I'm just going to add a few really simple kind of 1 or 2 brush stroke leaves to my Autumn Doodles watercolor. Maybe we need a little more green here. I'm trying to make a cohesive piece. Even though this is just doodles and it's just practice and fun, I do want it to look sort of cohesive. So the final step now, I have a few areas that I think I could have left a little bit of a highlight. So with watercolor, you always start light. You have to be thinking about those highlights right from the beginning, right? Because you can't remove paint or you can't really add highlights in later unless you have a little bit of white gouache. And I just put a little on my palette, mixed it with water, and then you can see here, I can add little highlights maybe on the shell of the snail or the shell of the acorn. And I wanted a few white dots, most of all on the mushroom, just to give it that extra little bit of life. It looked a little bit dull. So that's all done. We'll put our autumn title here at the bottom using that number 2 round brush and a nice dark black paint. A good all caps title always looks cute. And it completes my doodles page really beautifully. And that's it. We're all done. I'll end today by quickly mentioning my live art hour. The live stream takes place on the last Thursday of every month, and it is available to my $10 patrons. So it's $10 a month to be a part of this, plus you get all the other Patreon content like worksheets and coloring pages. But for the live stream, you get to ask questions, we chat, we do some art together, and for August we did this fun layered autumn floral. It's brush pen plus watercolor, so this took an hour to complete. And if you join, you get access to all the old live streams, which are essentially just real-time watercolor lessons. So check that out over on my Patreon, www.patreon.com/Shayda Campbell. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.